Let's get to the C tier, where it's a fat C tier. I believe 8 teams in this C tier. So I'll run through them as quickly as possible here. We have the Arizona Cardinals, who may be a bit of a surprise here to be in the C tier, because outside of Budda Baker, there may not be a household name on this list. I think there's not a household name on this list outside of maybe second rounder Will Johnson, who a lot of people had mocked in the first round. I had his first round type of player, but between injuries, between not testing, falls to the second round. He should start though right away. He should be an NFL. If he's healthy, he is an NFL ready corner who I'd expect to play at an NFL ready level early on in his career. And then Garrett Williams is the guy that I think more people need to know about. He is one of the best slot corners in the NFL in terms of just pure man match. He's not like a, Devin Witherspoon who can fill as a run defender. He's not one of these guys who, is really a great two-way player, but as a pure coverage player, I think he is exceptional in the slot. Packers are in this tier. I think their safety room's awesome. They're one of the few that makes this tier based off of their safety room, where you have Xavier McKinney, where you have Evan Williams, where you have Javon Bullard. Their corners, I'm worried about. Nate Hobbs, Keyshawn Nixon, but as Brock touched on earlier, what Jeff Hafley does is protect those corners. He did it already last year, and they were 6th in the NFL in EPA per pass against. Like, they had successful results by trying to feature these safeties more. And this is one of the teams where I gave a little deference to the linebacker unit. Not necessarily Quay Walker, but definitely last year's second rounder out of Texas A&M for the Green Bay Packers, who I'm blanking on names all day today. But and for a Green Bay Packer also, this is terrible. Edgerrin Cooper. Some of the plays he's able to make in coverage, I think he could be a massive value add to the secondary, and I fully expect them to play, a good deal of like Tampa 2 stuff, a good deal of coverages that will feature him and his ability to run the seam, get down the football field, and the athleticism he brings to that safety position. Next up, Kansas City Chiefs. They've lost some luster from this unit, right? Eric Reed out the door. Christian Fulton in. He's solid. He doesn't necessarily fit their ethos, though. He's never been a great press corner, which is what Steve Spagnuolo likes to do. So I'm going to be curious to hear your thoughts on that addition and what this secondary looks like going forward. But obviously, Trent McDuffie is like certified dude in the slot, one of the best in the NFL, and his versatility to go from slot to the outside, any given play, he bumps them up into the C tier. Giants next on this list, where this was probably the closest thing I had to a U tier secondary, because not only do they have 2 new faces in there in Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland, but they have 3 youngsters we just don't know what it's going to look like. And Tyler Nubin, who was your second rounder at safety last year out of Minnesota, Deonte Banks, who was your first rounder a couple of years ago, who has just had a rough go of it to start his career through 2 seasons. And then Andrew Phillips, who actually was outstanding as a rookie. So that unit, I don't know where they could end up, but they've definitely gone from probably like an F tier last year. They've bumped it up a notch with what they did in free agency. I put the Bills here. We'll see how this cornerback room looks with rookie first rounder Maxwell Hairston, but Christian Benford is obviously outstanding on the outside. It's the safety position that worries me a little bit with them. With Taylor Rapp, with Cole Bishop, the second rounder from a year ago, who didn't really play much his rookie season. This one might be controversial, and I've had enough of Eagles fans yelling at me, and you'd be surprised to know this, Brock, but no one, when you do these, no one thinks that their unit is overrated. No one's like, hey,
Shocking.
I'm a fan of the Eagles, and you put our defensive line too high, right? No one says that.
Right.
And I put the Eagles here in the C tier. You had 2 big losses. You lost Darius Slay. You lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You backfilled with Adoree Jackson and your second-round safety and Andrew Mukuba. And safety of all positions is one of the more difficult to translate really quickly to the NFL. There's been some great safety prospects, in recent years who have not hit the ground necessarily running. So, yes, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, awesome. But outside of that, I have serious question marks about this secondary. Yeah, I think it's going to get buoyed also by Zach Bond. He's a value add, but like the front 7 does the heavy lifting there in Philly. That's where they really are still going to hang their hat on. 49ers make this tier. I probably should have put him in the B tier, but I am worried about their safety position with Malik Mustafa coming off an ACL. Obviously lost Charvarius Ward this offseason. Renardo Green was great last year as a rookie. Diamador Lenore is, he got paid as such as one of the better slot outside versatile guys in the league. But I kept him in the C tier. I said probably should have bumped him up to the B tier. If Malik Mustafa could tell me he was healthy, they would be in the B tier right now. And last on this list is the Washington Commanders, where this really basically just depends on Marshawn Lattimore. He was not healthy down the stretch last season, had those hamstring injuries, has not been healthy for a while. But when he is, I think he could change the sort of face of the secondary, can bump Mike Sainristil back into the slot to where this could be a better unit than we saw a year ago. But that's the big question mark for the Commanders.
So we'll start with Philly here because that will bring the most questions. And the question I've had all offseason is why aren't we panicking just a little bit? I know through OTAs, they're kind of spinning it as, now we just want to see what Cooper does as a safety. We're no need to look into it. We're just curious. No, they need a safety. And it's unfair to ask a rookie to come in and start on a Super Bowl winning team in one of the most important positions and just exceed right away. So they're already working on a contingency plan. And by removing Cooper, putting him at safety, that's basically his rookie season. He's never played safety. Can he? Of course he can. He can probably do anything. He's one of the best athletes in the NFL. But now your contingency plan is 2 new positions instead of 1. I'm concerned. Will they succeed? Yes, because look at the guys you have in front of you, like you mentioned. But there is enough cause for concern. I know they'll have it figured out by week 8, but I am curious what weeks 1 through 7 look like if there are no additions there. And
so Andrew Mukuba, just a question for you here, because Andrew Mukuba at Clemson before he transferred to Texas, he played a lot of slot.
Yeah.
And so what position do you think is easier? So if they're trying Cooper out at safety to play next to Reed Blankenship, and then that would obviously open up the slot position, translating to the NFL, safety in like a Vic Fangio defense easier to translate, or slot corner, do you think?
In a Vic Fangio defense, I want you furthest away from the line of scrimmage. There is a lot going on. Whoever is at that nickel, you have to communicate with everyone. You do not know what's going on in a Vic Fangio defense. The shell itself is simple, but they can get to so many different coverages, and if you drop the wrong way, you're in trouble. Put him back there, far back, read this guy out there. Put him under your wing, have him be your shadow every meeting, every weight room, everything. He is right next to you until he, and then maybe you can bring him down closer to the line of scrimmage. Last thing on this here, 2 things actually. Buffalo will always overperform their roster.
Yep.
Really, in the Sean McDermott era, they've kind of gotten away from the superstar back there, right? They draft dudes, but at no time have we looked at Buffalo's secondary and say, man, they are going to be a problem. Nope, but they always overperform. McDermott is a defensive guy, and he's going to put his guys in position to succeed. Lastly, you mentioned Jacksonville, how they have so much room to grow. I see that with Arizona. You took a flyer on Will Johnson because people thought that he was too injured. Big on Max Melton, who's going into his second year, and Budda Baker's there.
And to give some more context, or not context, but like for the Arizona Cardinals, I think they fall into one of those buckets that we kind of discussed a little earlier where they did not have a pass rush. Their pass rush was solely predicated on the blitz last year. And this year, that at least should change. I mean, it's always easy to project out and say it will change. They've added so much talent that it pretty much has to get better there in Arizona. I think I put them as a B tier defensive front 7 when I ranked them. So I think things should get better. I actually put them as U tier, but they will be a better unit this upcoming season. Let's get to the B tier, where, gosh, we got 7 teams in this B tier, starting with the Atlanta Falcons. This was one of the toughest ones to rank because I am a big believer in Xavier Watts. They obviously
right
are kind
of
right there stars and scrubs, but if there's any safety I think can translate and be a player right away for a team as a rookie, it is Xavier Watts from what I saw on his tapes. Former wide receiver. He played 4 years at Notre Dame. He led the nation in picks over the past 2 seasons. His football IQ is off the charts. So I think he comes in and plays next to Jesse Bates, and that safety tandem is going to be dynamite. Then you have AJ Terrell locking it down the outside. Now they weren't B tier last year in terms of the results they got. They allowed the highest completion percentage against in the entire NFL. but another team where they don't have the pass rush in front of them. I look at the secondary, and I think they have the people to get it done this season. I put the Cowboys in this tier. Obviously, massive injuries a season ago. Didn't have Trayvon Diggs for much of the year. Didn't have Jerome Bland for much of the year. But I think those two, adding Savone Revel in the third round, I think this can be a physical press, punch you in the mouth sort of unit. And then Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson on the back end, not terrible at the safety position, enough to where I think they belong in this tier. Colts, I put here, they added so much in the offseason, whether it was Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum, and I do just think going to a Lou Anarumo defense, guys like Cam Bynum are ones that can play in that. Guys like Charvarius Ward can play in that defense. Kenny Moore, I think he's going to transform what this Colts defense looks like this upcoming season. I think the talent is there. And I think people need to know the name Nick Cross. He is one of the best safeties in the NFL. He does not get a lot of love because of where he plays, the team he plays on, but he can cover ground on the back end. I put the Saints here. Obviously, they added Justin Reed this offseason. Alante Taylor is one of the most physical slot corners in the NFL. Kool-Aid McKinstry had a pretty good rookie season. It's that other cornerback position that I'm a little worried about that kind of saves them from the A tier going a little higher, but I still think it's a good unit on the whole. The Jets were one of the hardest ones to rank because you go from DJ Reed to Brandon Stevens at outside cornerback, and that's just a huge downgrade. It just is. Brandon Stevens was probably the biggest liability in Baltimore last season. DJ Reed was outplaying Sauce Gardner for large portions of last season. Like, that cornerback trio was outstanding, but as soon as you take one of those away, I think the results are going to backslide. But obviously, Sauce Gardner, Michael Carter, both outstanding. Steelers, I put here with the addition of Jalen Ramsey. Where he ends up, I'm not sure. I think slot makes the most sense given his career trajectory. He's played there before, his physical play style, where they need it, but he could play safety as well. And I think Joey Porter Jr. going into year 3, Darius Slay coming over, I think this cornerback group is going to, you can at least win with it. It may not be, like I said, A tier, S tier, but it's good enough. And then lastly, Tennessee Titans, maybe a bit of a surprise to be talked about here, but obviously L'Jarius Sneed injured last season. Hopefully he's back and at his best. Jarvis Brownlee was way outperformed what you would think for a day 3 guy. And I actually think he can be a lockdown sort of guy from what we saw from him in the NFL. Roger McCreary in the slot, Kevin Winston Jr., third round safety, I think could come in and see time for them. And they actually allowed the fewest passing yards in the NFL last season. Now that's because they were getting blown out a lot of games and teams didn't need to pass, but they actually had good results a year ago. So that's your B tier. It's pretty extensive.
It is. Let's start with Atlanta. We are so in lockstep with so many teams in this tier. Xavier Watts was born to play safety, flat out. And you put him next to Jesse Bates, who has 1 million interceptions and 250 tackles over the last 2 years. They are flat out going to ball. San Francisco, I am not as high on San Francisco when I look at who's on paper, but then I get to number 54, and I remember that any defense with Fred Warner has a chance.
Yeah, they should be in the B tier. They should be in the B
tier. Every defense with the best linebacker in football, arguably the best defensive player in football, has a shot. So as long as he's there, I cannot argue any tier that you put them in. Pittsburgh, I feel, is the biggest boomer bust, which is going to be the story of their season, right? That's not just for the secondary, that's for the entire team. If the older guys remain healthy and on the field, they can be as good as anything. If the older guys get hurt and the young guys like Joey Porter Jr. remain grabby and inconsistent, it can be a nightmare. But I am going to watch, and I'm going to love every single second of it. Dallas comes down to health. If they can remain healthy, it feels like a lifetime ago that Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland had 2 years apart, the interception crown. And if they can get anything close to that, hopefully by bringing in some newer names like Kyer Elam, Deron Bland can maybe go back to nickel, maybe just to spice something up. But the fact remains, if they can be healthy, they will be fine. And lastly, New Orleans, not as good as Fred Warner, but Demario Davis is still probably on a Hall of Fame track as a linebacker. He's going to be out there. He's going to be a boost. And Alante Taylor is arguably the best nickel in football. And because of that, I don't know what the Saints are going to look like, but I know that back end will be hard to make plays on.
I love that you brought up Joey Porter Jr.'s grabbiness. I cannot remember He has, through 2 seasons in the NFL, 27 penalties.
Something has to change. Like at some point you have to do something different. You can't just keep going out there and doing the same thing over and over and over again. But maybe bringing in a Jalen Ramsey, maybe bringing in a Darius Slay, maybe that's what sparks it, right? Obviously, the coaches aren't getting that through to him. Maybe a veteran that he respects, multiple veterans that he respects, can sit him down because he can be so dang good. He just needs to wear boxing gloves out there.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey, like, he is kind of the archetype of how you be physical without having a massive penalty problem. You know, like it's possible to do, but it's only gotten worse. He actually had more penalties in year 2, Joey Porter did, than he had in year 1. That's going the wrong way.